My name is Denise Smith, and I'm one of the negotiators for the Sliammon Final Agreement, our treaty. We're doing some filming here today, and what we're trying to do is answer some questions from community members. We know that there are questions out there that people have questions or concerns about the upcoming Sliammon Treaty, so we're doing this project in an attempt to answer some of those questions. The first question that we have is in regards to the Sliammon Constitution that was recently ratified by the community. And the question is a question that was posed by Esther Williams, one of our community members. And the question is, the Constitution was passed by the people of Sliammon. How is it being put to work currently? The way the plan works is that the Constitution will not come into effect until after the final agreement. So after we vote on our treaty and the treaty comes into effect, then the Constitution comes into effect. But having said that, there's no reason why our leadership and our chief and council and all of our organizations can't start using what we put into the Constitution. The Constitution was developed with community input. It was developed keeping in mind community concerns about how we govern ourselves. And there are good values and beliefs in the Constitution that could be put to work right now. So there's no reason leadership couldn't use the parts of the Constitution that can be applied today. There are First Nations that are not in the treaty process that have a constitution currently. So it's not, you don't have to be in treaty to have a constitution. We could use some of the things in the Constitution right now. The second question is, who is responsible for lawmaking in Sliammon? Can they be changed, and if so, how? So right now, if laws were being developed in Sliammon under the Indian Act, it's chief and council that would develop those laws. For example, a dog bylaw or a nuisance bylaw or a trespassing bylaw. Chief and council would be responsible for developing those laws now. In treaty, if we pass a treaty and we get a yes vote, there will be a requirement for a number of laws to be in place at that time. The requirement is that a law would be drafted, it would go to the community would have input, and the community would vote to enact those laws in the future. There's another question here, and the question is from Peter August, who's also a community member and an elder. And Peter's question is there money in treaty for a new band office? And if so, where will it be located? So again, if we have a treaty and if a treaty passes, it gets voted yes, there is a commitment from the government to give Sliammon First Nation $1 million towards a band administration / cultural building. So it does require the community to vote yes in order to access that money. There's a question here from Vern PL, who's a member of our community. How fast will our laws be put into effect to protect all aspects of land, fish, etc.? Again, when we get a treaty, we will be responsible to take care of our lands. The Constitution does talk about values like protecting our lands and resources and making sure those things are there for our future generations, and that's written right into the Constitution. We will have to develop laws around environment, so we'll have environmental laws that say what we do if somebody pollutes, what do we do if somebody takes down trees without asking, what do we do if somebody destroys an archaeological site, what do we do if somebody pollutes our rivers. So we will have to develop environmental laws that tell us what we do in those situations, and that will guide our leadership and our people and how we use our land and resources in the future. So we would try to have a look at what other First Nations are doing and use those as guides to help us in developing our laws. One of the comments from Vern PL was it would be nice to have other bands come in and share their experience on treaty, and I really agree with that. We know that the Nisga'a First Nation, for example, they have a treaty in place and they're living and breathing it now. We know that the Tsawwassen First Nation has ratified a treaty, and the Manalth First Nations have ratified a treaty. So it is a good idea to have them come in and talk to our people. It would be good to have them come and explain why they choose to go down the road of a treaty, why they felt they needed to do this, why it was good for the community, what were some of the things that their community was concerned about with going into a treaty, and have them explain and share their feelings and their experience with our community. There's a question here about the funding that the band receives, and this is a common question. There's a real concern that when we get a treaty that the funding we get from Indian Affairs, INAC, to our government will not continue. There's a concern that that money won't be there anymore and that we will have to pay for all of those things ourselves. That's not true. The funding we receive from Indian Affairs is approximately $6 million a year. And when we receive, if we have a treaty, that money will not disappear. That money will continue to come to the First Nation. What we will receive in treaty will be over and above what we currently get. So we won't have to pay for our own social assistance, for example. We won't have to start paying for all of our own health care. That's not true. Those are myths, and all that funding will continue on after a treaty. It doesn't magically go away the day after treaty. It will continue. There was a question about the money that will come to Sliammon. So for example, if the band receives $30 million and decides they want to invest $20 million, the question is, how will that happen and who decides that? Well, I'm guessing that it would be smart to bring in a financial advisor. You would have somebody come in that will advise us on how to invest that money safely, how to make sure that it's there in the future, that it doesn't get all spent now and then there's nothing left for the kids. It would be invested long term over time and taken care of. And there's no real set answer right now, but that's the idea. The money gets invested, put away, and saved for later on in our lifetime, in our children's lifetime.